Hello, this is Mr. Bergman, and we're going to do the work together problem for 11.2. And instead of doing the accounts payable ledger, we're doing the accounts receivable ledger. So it says that a partial sales and cash receipts journal for Graphics Incorporated are given below. And it also says that there are some other forms that you want to be aware of. Step number one here says start a new page for an accounts receivable ledger account, Brandy Sparks. And the account number is 140 and the balance on October 1st is 212. So let's start this. So we'll go down to our accounts receivable ledger, which remember is the opposite of accounts payable ledger. We're dealing with customers this time around and they owe us money eventually. So we're going to put a Brandy Sparks down and we're going to put her account number and we're going to open up her accounts receivable ledger account here with putting down the balance. And if you remember from the last time, we always put the word balance and then a check mark afterwards. The debit and credit columns are for transactions only, and we're going to put in $212 as the debit balance. So that takes care of that first one. All right, so the next transaction here is going to be post the accounts receivable debit entry on line 5 of the sales journal to the accounts receivable account for Brandy Sparks. So we're going to look for the sales journal here, and we see a transaction for Brandy Sparks on the 20th. So we're going to put down the 20th. We're going to put down that we got it on sales journal page 10, S10, and we have 3 different columns right here. When you look at the special column titles, this is accounts receivable, this says sales tax. We're dealing with the accounts receivable ledger, and this is accounts receivable account, therefore we use this right here, the accounts receivable column. And it's going to be debited for $576.64. Okay, now if you notice, it has a debit balance, so we're going to take 576.64, and we are going to add 212, and you should get 788.64. So we'll just put that down there. Last thing we do is we put the account number, just like in the last section. Notice that the account number begins with a 1. That means it's an asset. So that's why that is the way it is. All right, so let's go on to the next set of directions. And the next set of directions actually tell you, all right, well, we're going to go to the cash receipts journal, and we're going to look at Alfredo Lopez here, his transactions. So you want to go to Alfredo Lopez, and you'll notice that this transaction happened on the 21st. It happened on, let's take a look, cash receipts journal page 12. And here is your number, 254.40. That's in the accounts receivable credit column. So we'll put down 254.40. All right, we have a debit balance, but we're crediting it. So that means that we're going to take 1526.40 and we are going to subtract 254.40 and we get 1272. So I'm just going to put that number here, and then we put the account number 130. All right, next set of directions would tell us to go to the general journal, and if you notice there's only one transaction that we have to worry about right here, and that's for David Bishop. So we'll put David Bishop's name right here. And there's a transaction for David Bishop on the 12th. So we'll put down the 12th. We'll put down where we got it, which was General Journal page 11. Okay. Now if we're typically doing this transaction right here, we'd be posting each one of these individual accounts first. Then we'd be posting to accounts receivable and then David Bishop to the accounts receivable ledger. You'll notice that this 5512 is credited. So we're going to credit 5512 here. And when you do that, remember, it has a debit balance, but you're crediting it, so opposite subtract, so it should be 183.38. The next thing that you would do according to the directions is prepare the schedule for accounts receivable. So you would go through, you'd put the name of the businesses down here, and then you would go through your ledger, one account at a time. You'd write down the name of the business and the actual balance at this point. If there's no balance, then you can't put anything in there. So as we're going through, we're going through and we're putting those down, and we add that up and we label it as a total accounts receivable. Now what that number should do is this should correspond with the accounts receivable balance in the general ledger.